Well, we lost quite a bit. Unfortunately, the tape ran out. I got the V-valve out. Came out very easily. I just used a hand file and I removed the burr that somebody created with a pipe wrench. Most likely when reinstalling the valve, I filed it. Put my socket on there, it just unscrewed. So now we're back to removing the pilot check piston. This wall area is very thin. There's some hammer marks on it. Hopefully they didn't damage the bore for the pilot check piston. And I've loosened the nut for the pilot check valve, which is a ball and spring. We're going to remove that now. Then we'll see how hard it is for us to push the pilot check piston out from the bottom side. So I'm going to unscrew the plug here. Remove the pilot check valve, which, like I say, is a ball and spring. Okay, not a big deal. Because I already dumped the oil, so we have a ball and a spring and a pipe plug with a hex head. These often get damaged. We stock them, we sell tons of them. The hexes get worn out or rusted, or people use the wrong size, whatever. You can buy it as a kit, or we just sell the plug as well. Put this in our parts can. Now we're going to see if we can push from the bottom side and free up the pilot check piston. Now, it's a somewhat delicate procedure. We don't want to damage the bore when we remove it, so we're going to be very gentle. Our oil's done draining out of the cavity. Oil all over my hands. So we're going to see if we can use our brass drift to get up underneath and drive that out. Okay, it's not going to fit. Just give it a light tap. It's locked in place pretty good. It's not a good sign. Let's see what's going on down here. Yeah, we're striking right on it. Give it another shot and see. Operating. Oh, there it goes. All right, hopefully a little bit of rust on it. One of the things they tell you to do during the rebuild process is inspect pilot check piston for scores or scratches, and I can tell just by feeling this, the surface is quite rough. We'll clean it off. See what it looks like. And it's got some definite scores. We'll take a look inside the bore. Just from sitting, it's possible that it froze in position because it's normally in the down position. Let's see how it fits in the bore. First, we're going to put a little solvent in there, clean the bore out. It should just drop right in, which it does. It should come back out just as easily. Pick up the tool. Want to. Get it with this one. No. Alright, we'll have to investigate and see why it's getting stuck in the bore. It should not be. It should remove easily. can see it's not really binding that bad. Just at the very bottom of the stroke it's binding. Possibly it's rust on the bottom here around the base of it. We'll check it out. We'll try installing a new one. See if that makes a difference, because I don't see anything in the actual bore itself that would cause that to occur. So let's clean out our cavities here where our valves go. First we'll drain out the oil that's accumulated. Because the hose is still attached, we're actually draining what's in the hose. May as well start at the top and work our way down. This is what you want to see when you look inside the valve block. You want it to be nice and shiny and clean. There's still some debris in there we got to clean out, but there's no signs of rust or scratches or scores or gouges on the journals where the O-rings are going to seat. So we're looking like we're in pretty good shape here. Turn it around now and remove the A valve. This is an older unit, so it uses the 3/8 A valve. Has a brass nut. The 3/8 measurement refers to the diameter at the stem of the valve, not the nut, though it just so happens it's a 3/8 nut, and because it's brass it comes right out, or should I say it comes loose very easily. We'll replace this with the updated version, which is a 5/8 stem, and again we'll put a brass nut on it. We save the brass nuts just because I'll save this coil for my friend, because again, you know, he rebuilt these units and there's probably nothing wrong with this. In fact, it looks pretty much brand new. So I'll save this for him, put it aside. Possibly somebody had a problem with the valve lowering, and that's why I replaced the A valve, because the A valve controls lower. The A valve, older style like this with 3/8 stem, has an 1.125" hex on it. Now what we find, and you'll find I'm sure, debris really likes to accumulate around the A valve. I don't know if you see all that junk in there. Rather than have to deal with it inside the unit, I like to scrape off and degrease as much of it as I can before I open it up. So usually we find rocks and pebbles lodged in here. All sorts of debris. Yep, there's a rock. So we're going to clean this up. When you degrease the unit, it's kind of difficult to get in here because of the coil. Once you remove the coil, then you can get in there and scrape the crud out of it. Now you can see a little better. The hex on that's 1.125". You'll need an 1.125" deep socket, which will most likely be 1/2 inch drive. The A takes the 1.125". The B and the C take 1.25". And again, I don't need to kill my hand, so we'll use the hammer. And again, the valve is ridiculously loose. Now those large diameter stem is a 5/8 stem, A valve. That's the difference out here. It's the stem diameter. From here in is the same, so you can interchange this with a 5/8. Either one will fit here, as long as you use the coil with the valve. Got some more debris that's underneath the valve that I wanted to scrape away here while I have access. Clean that off. See, we got some remnants of Teflon tape, little pieces of it that were in the sump base here. Teflon tape is a no-no on these units because it will find its way in to the system. We always use a liquid thread sealant. We use it actually more as a lubricant than a sealant. Pipe threads are pretty much self-sealing, so we're going to remove the hose fittings from this unit because we do not use swivels. Meyer stopped using them in 2000, late 90s, early O's. All they are is a leak waiting to happen. There's no benefit to having them there. It's not necessary to have them. They're just going to leak. So, very nice to see this. Pin type coupler. There's a pin sticking out of the end as opposed to a ball. The ball types are garbage in our experience. They just don't hold up. Meyer switched to pin types years ago, and so did we. Often these will come in and they'll have a rating on them, and it'll say like 3,000 psi or something along those lines, and your crossover valve doesn't open until 3,800. So it doesn't make sense to have a coupler that's only rated at 3,000, and you're going to shock it. Remember, the crossover valve opens at 3,800. It's not that it is only 3,800. It could be as high as 17,000 psi. What's going to decide the pressure that flows through the crossover relief valve is how fast you're going when you hit something. So, for those guys that like to fly around with their plow and do 40 miles an hour, sooner or later they're going to learn, and it's usually the hard way. These hexes are a real pain in the neck sometimes. So far everything on this unit's been loose, but overall these are usually a real pain in the neck. So we use our 6-point wrench because it's a heavier design and it won't slip when trying to loosen these. And again, this one's nice and loose compared to most. Remove our hose. These we do save. We cut them down and we use them for flushing. We give them to our customers to use for flushing when they need to flush their angle ramps. They're going to need a short piece of hose with a coupler on the end, and this fits the bill perfectly. So we'll put this to the side. I'm pressing on the pin on the end of the coupler. I'm draining the hose. Get most of the oil out of it so it doesn't make a mess. And we add it to the hose pile over here. Alright, now we'll remove the swivel, 90-degree swivel elbow that's on this. And again, we use the 6-point wrench because it's a thicker design. And hope that it's loose. Yep. Quite loose. Alright, off she comes. Dump out any oil that's left in the valve block. Forgot to show you when we removed the pump. On the suction side, there's a flat O-ring that goes in this groove. It's the only flat O-ring on the unit. So when you get your seal kit and you're looking through all the seals, you'll find one flat O-ring, and this is where it goes, in this cavity here. Alright. Now comes fun. We're going to make an attempt at removing this valve block. Sometimes this can be a real bear. So, wish me luck. Again, now we've completely drained the unit. There's no reason for me to have this drain pan here. Again, I'm going to put it to the side. Don't need it. Messy accident waiting to happen. My gloves are all oily. We'll change gloves because I'm going to be trying to take out some stubborn bolts rather than have the nitrile gloves, I'm going back to the pigskins. Just personal preference. You can leave the nylon, nitrile ones on if you want. First thing we do is take our pick. Make sure that the hex part of the nuts, the bolts, is cleaned out. No debris in them. A lot of times these are packed solid with mud. It seems that the mud dauber wasps get in there. And get our socket. Get it lined up where you can feel. And always take the hammer to tap, tap, tap to make sure it's fully seated. Because these bolts you do not want to strip. So let's see how lucky we are. Not a good sign. Not a good sign at all. That's the first one. That's a no-go. Grab our hammer again. Tap, tap, tap. Get it fully seated. That's a no-go. Feel around, make sure you got it lined up. This one seems to have some debris in it. Interestingly enough, what happens to these bolts is it's not the thread portion that's holding. It's corrosion around the actual heads of the bolt. The heads of the bolt are knurled, and they seem to corrode severely on some of these. And again, it's a dissimilar metals thing. Steel bolt, aluminum cavity. This one's not wanting to go in at all. Get our pan back up here. Clean it out. You can see this one's so bad there. You see the bolt right there? Was judging the corrosion of this delamination all around in this area here. I didn't have a good feeling about getting this valve block out anyway. If we can't get it, it's not imperative that it be removed. Although, in a situation like this where I don't know the history of the pump, I don't know that the sump base is not cracked, and it would really not be a good feeling to rebuild the unit only to find out that the base was cracked and we had to sacrifice it anyway. Because the base we sell for $127. The angle block is obsolete. So if you have to sacrifice something, it's going to be the base, not the angle block. That's going to strip. Oh, more debris. All right, try the bottom one. If we can get one of these to break loose, that's a start. There we go. That's one. Now this one, interestingly, the threads are exposed on the back side. I'll show you where in a moment. Now you can see there's a little bit of corrosion on the threads, but not much. And the head's actually greasy in this case, which is probably why I was able to get it out. Usually the two in the back you're able to get free, and the reason is that they protrude through. The holes are not blind holes. They actually go all the way through. They're threaded. The top bolt comes through right here. These are the threads. And the bottom bolt actually comes through here. So you're able to actually get to the thread portion, whereas these are threaded blind into the sump base casting. So they're usually the difficult ones, not the ones in the rear. So. make another attempt at removing this top one in the rear here. Bolt off. See about getting this one in here. Doesn't feel like it's going in there properly. Not really sure what's going on. Scrape around some more. Maybe a little compressed air will help. Better. Feel the seating in there very nicely. Let's see now. This one ain't gonna go either. Does not want to go. There we go. It's a delicate balance. It's very easy to strip these bolts, which is why it's pretty critical that you get them all cleaned out before you try to even tap the hex bit into the bolt. And you can see there's some white corrosion around the head, and you can see how nice and clean the threads are where they pass through the hollow. And even on the end there's not really any heavy corrosion. The most corrosion is just white corrosion on the head. And that's what's holding these in. So, try again. If I can get 3 of them out, the 4th one will rotate the whole block and unscrew it. I got to see if I can get out the 3rd one without stripping it. I don't think tapping on it shocks it at all. I don't know that it helps. It does sometimes with rust. I'm afraid I'm going to strip this, but I'm going to try a longer ratchet. Give myself a little bit more leverage here, which usually just means I'll strip it easier. But let's see. Yeah, not a good sign. Hurt's starting to go. Even though this top one's exposed and in the corroded area, we'll give it a shot, because like I say, if I can get this one, then I should be able to unscrew the whole valve block, so to speak. Yep, there we go. And I'm going to stop right there. And I want you to see that white corrosion. Watch as I turn it. See the white corrosion on the head of that bolt? See it? Just falling off. Just dust falling off the bolt. See it? You'll see when I remove this bolt what it looks like. I bet the threads are not bad at all, and it's that heavy corrosion on the head of the bolt that's holding it in. See? Oh, this one had a little bit, but the head is far worse than the threads. You can pick your penetrating oil. I don't care which one you want. It's not really going to help very much when you're talking about that white corrosion. That's like a calcium buildup. It's not something that chemicals that are designed to eat rust work very well on. Okay, so now being that we think that the head is what's holding it, I'm going to try to unscrew the valve block by tapping on it here with the mallet. So make sure I got a tight device. I don't want to crack the lug off the base of the sump, base, but I do want to see if I can unscrew this. So we'll try with the rubber mallet first. See? Okay. Now I know I'm going to get it off. Got a little bit of oil in here. I'm kind of glad it gave me a hard time, so at least I had something to show you as far as taking it off. Because these are more often a problem than not. That oil that's in between there is probably for me loosening things, but it could also be that there's a crack in the base casting right here where there's that white corrosion. That's where they're notorious for cracking. I'll clean this up and inspect that thoroughly because that's where I would expect it to be cracked. Just want to get the rest of the oil off of this. And you can see I'm unscrewing this. The threads are alright. It's the head of this bolt that's seized in the bore. That white corrosion that builds up. There's a little bit on the end of the bolt, but the threads aren't bad at all. So we'll put our sump base to the side. And our oil, because we don't need it. I'll move the sump base to a different location, because I'm going to put the valve block up here. And I'm going to knock out this bolt. Look at that. Suffice to say, I hit that pretty hard just to get it to move. Punch it out the rest of the way. You may be surprised the amount of corrosion around the head. Yeah. Look at the white corrosion. Look at how bad that is. That was seized in the bore, which is why I couldn't get it to move. We'll put new bolts on this unit when we reassemble it. As bad as this looks on the outside, it's internally okay. So we'll be rebuilding this unit, reusing this valve block. Now we'll switch back to the sump base and get that cleaned up some more. And I'll show you where they're notorious for cracking. You can see all this white buildup. It's actually that same white corrosion. It's just wet with oil that builds up in this cavity. It almost looks like sand. Sometimes it's like dry. It's very common, especially a pump this age. It's not unusual to have this buildup in there. Like I say, this is the area we're going to be looking for a crack. We have 3 O-rings here that make a seal, and the valve block is bolted to the side of the sump casting. These O-rings just want to pick out. There's 1. There's 2. And there's 3. 3 little O-rings. So when you get your seal kit, you'll see 3 little O-rings in the kit, possibly even a couple extras. But 3 of them are going here. They're all the same size. There's a lot of brake cleaner when we do one of these units. Show you how we check for cracks initially. We got that all cleaned down now with brake cleaner, so there shouldn't be any oil, right? Got all dried off. Our base is dry, nice and dry, nice and white and corroded. Often, you can just inspect. I need to put on a pair of glasses, but we'll put a couple of drops of oil in this port and rotate it so that it gets on the sidewalls. And often there's enough oil in there now that you'll see it get wet, and the only place it's coming from is the opposite side. So that's one of the ways we check for crack in the sump casting. I'm going to put a couple of drops of oil in here now on this sidewall, roll it around, let the excess drip out. And we'll just let it sit here for a minute, see if there's any signs of wetness in that area, and I'm going to grab another sump base that's cracked and show you what I'm talking about. This happens to be a 1982 casting in my hand, and you can see plain as day where this unit is cracked. Right here. There's a crack. This happens from having an excessive amount of water inside the unit that gets into this filter port, and when it freezes, it cracks the side. And here we have one that's I can't see the date. This one's cracked and bulged. There's no mistake in this one being cracked. Giant crack. Even got some rust in it. One of the ways you'll know that your base is cracked, I get a lot of guys that'll call up and say, my valve block is leaking underneath the valves. And I tell them it's almost impossible for it to be leaking underneath the valves. Most likely you have a crack in your sump base. And then when they disassemble the unit, 9 times out of 10, they find that their sump base is cracked. The other time out of 10, they find there's steel balls that are pressed in to the billet aluminum here. After they drill the passageways, they press a steel ball in to seal it. Well, the other one time out of 10, this steel ball down here came out, and there's no repair for that. You have to replace the valve plug. That's the only fix. Just to see if I can get that cleaned up so you can see the steel ball. As bad as this thing was with corrosion, you can see the steel ball still nice and shiny. It's not rusty. So another reason I'd like to save this valve block if I can. Well, we got it all torn down. I'm not seeing any signs of moisture there right now where I put the few drops of oil. I'm going to let this sit overnight because right now it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and we have it all torn down, and we'll resume again tomorrow night when I'll start putting it all back together.